Hey there, folks. This is the Screen Watching Podcast. My name's Dan Barrett, joined by Simon Foster. On the podcast this week, we do what we do best, which is we talk to each other, we bore our audience, but also beyond that, the podcast is screen watching. So we talk about what we've seen on screens. Those are movies, those are TV shows, those are just, the videos that play at the Bowser as we pump our petrol. I actually did do that with one of these titles. We'll talk about that in a second. But what are we talking about this week? Simon's going to deep dive in the latest in the zombie UK extravaganza. That is the 28. Is this like 48 up? Is that what we're doing here? It's 28 years later, Bone Temple. Is it any good? Simon's going to let us know. Also, is it any good? There's a Matt Damon, Ben Affleck movie debuting on Netflix.com this very weekend. It's called The Rip. I have seen it and I have some thoughts. A couple of days ago, I was filling up petrol. In fact, it was yesterday afternoon. I looked over. There was one of those screens that play the ads, and it wasn't for, some sort of travel getaway I could go on. It was for a movie called Hamnet, and Simon's going to let us know, is it any good? So will I make my decision based off Simon or what I saw in a video while filling up petrol? We'll see. People We Met on Vacation, I believe that is a direct-to-streaming movie, so Simon won't watch The Rip, but he will watch this rom-com that's playing on Prime Video? Question mark? No? Where is it, Simon? Netflix. Netflix got the nod. Also on the pod, Star Trek Starfleet Academy. It's debuting. It's filled with lots of attractive young things and Holly Hunter. And also my X-Files rewatch continues. I've watched so many gosh darn episodes this week that I can't see anything that isn't Mulder and Scully right now. Folks, this is Screen Watching.
This is not like TV, only better.
Television! Teacher, mother!
Secret lover.
What, that's it? That's your movie?
Well, I said that I had an idea for a movie.
All right, so this is Screen Watching. I'm Dan. This is Simon. Simon Foster, you and I, we went to see a movie the other night together. It wasn't quite a romantic movie, but it was certainly relationship tinged. But I don't think we can talk about it for a week or two.
No, we can talk about it. What did we see during the week? We saw 28 Years Later, didn't we? You and I. Oh, no, that was with my wife. No, we saw
We are interchangeable.
We are interchangeable. I don't see when the movies come on. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Screen Watching. Screen Watchers everywhere. When the movies come on, I am so consumed by the wonders of filmed entertainment that unfold before me that I forget who's sitting next to me very often. I've looked sideways and often stunned that I even see you there.
I've been at the movies and seen you asleep.
Yes, true. That was, and I'll be reviewing one of those films today. But yes, we did. We had a big week of movie watching this week. There was quite a few things that caught our attention. But you've been well, Dan Barrett. You look well.
Look, doing great. Simon, I think there's a bit of a question you want us to throw at us this week.
Yes, we're all about zombies this week with 28 Years Later, Bone Temple in cinemas. So I thought, which do you prefer? Are you a shuffler or a sprinter? Of the zombies that have so far graced our screens for many, many years now, you've got the lurchers, you've got the sort of the shuffling ones, which I think are most famous for Night of the Living Dead, the Romero zombie, let's call them, the shufflers that sort of move forward. You can easily outrun if you have to. But then you've got the sprinters. You've got the screechers and the chasers, like you see in the 28 Years Later films, like we saw in Zack Snyder's take on Dawn of the Dead. So I'm just wondering, which is scarier to you? Which do you prefer as your on-screen zombies?
The problem is that the sprinters don't make a lick of sense to me.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, I appreciate that. As far as I'm aware, it's not real that people come back from the dead. But my understanding is that dead things tend to enter a bit of rigor mortis and whatnot. And so you would expect that things don't suddenly have the superhuman ability to run real fast, particularly if it wasn't a creature that could run real fast beforehand.
Gee, that's an
which, let's be
interesting
real,
point.
is most people.
Yeah.
So, look, I mean, zombies probably aren't necessarily my favorite of genres, but when I think about my favorites, it's things like the Romero films. It's like Shaun of the Dead, which... Did I ever tell you my Shaun of the Dead story?
No, but it better be entertaining.
It's not too bad. I went to see Shaun of the Dead in Japan when the film was released.
Yep.
And that was only released for the first time in 2019 in Japan.
What?
Well, it never got a cinema release in Japan.
Seriously?
For whatever
Why
reason.
would that have been? Did it have cultural
I don't know, Simon, but it didn't.
issues?
But when I was there, it got like a cinema release for the first time. And I'm like, look, I'm in Japan. I should go and see this movie at the cinema. So
I guess.
When do you get the opportunity? So I went and watched Shaun of the Dead, and it's every bit as hilarious as I remembered it
It
being
really
from
is,
like
yes.
the 15 years between when I'd seen the film previously to then. So the film was great. My wife and I, we're watching the film, we're laughing, we're having a great time, and we're the only people in the theater having a great time with it. Okay, and then we're like reading up on it later, and apparently in Japan, the general sort of appreciation of cinema is that it doesn't matter how hilarious and how fantastic Simon Pegg is, you don't really laugh at movies out loud, you just kind of appreciate them. And so we were loud, just boorish Westerners sitting in the cinema having a great time with it.
Tarantino says exactly the same thing, that there is a cultural sort of, and he cites Australians as this as well. He says that we don't really make a lot of noise because in America, when you go to the movies, especially in some sort of population centers, it is a very noisy experience. There is talking and laughing at the screen. So yeah, you're right. It's a Japanese thing and to some extent an Australian thing that we don't react to the screen as perhaps we should. Which do I prefer? So what was your answer? You're a shuffler.
Shuffler.
I was deeply impacted by the Romero stuff, and I find the notion of zombies, just the relentless nature of their pursuit of you, to be quite terrifying. And I had some sort of deep, dark moments with zombie films when I was a spratling. I've got to say, I find the Screechers and the Runners really scary because they play into that. They're just relentless, nonstop killing machines that come after you no matter what. And I think, but having said that, some of the scariest zombie films I've seen have been the Shufflers. I'm going to say Screechers. I'm going to go with the Runners and the Screechers.
Follow-up question, how do you feel about Pepe Le Pew?
Pepe Le Pew, as a cartoon character, I'm all in favor of it.
Well, he just seems very much like these sort of Screech that you're talking about. He's relentless, never really stops.
Exactly right. Yeah, he's very much a romantic zombie. A sexual zombie is Pepe Le Pew. There's our T-shirt quote.
28 years later, the bone, whatever it is, let's play the clip.
Trying to predict the future is a discouraging and hazardous occupation. In fact, it may not even exist at all.
I was amongst the small group of my critical brethren who did not care for the last 28 years later film. And I know that puts me well in the minority across the critical landscape. It was widely considered to be a huge return to form for Danny Boyle. In those two words, it was part of the problem for me. Not a Danny Boyle fan. I think he's very much an advertising executive turned filmmaker, and a lot of that comes through in his films. But Alex Garland's script was smart, and maybe I didn't give it quite the credit it deserved. And Alex Garland has returned for this film, 28 years later, The Bone Temple. Danny Boyle hasn't returned. Nia DaCosta, who I only know of from doing the Candyman remake a few years ago, she has stepped
in. And also The Marvels.
Yeah, a couple of The Marvels for sure. Oh, Marvels, yes.
The Marvels.
The Marvels, yes. Gee, that was a film I'd forgotten about. And she has brought a more straightforward storytelling style to this film, which I really appreciated. In a nutshell, we were introduced to Ralph Fiennes' character, Dr. Ian Kelson, in the first film. He lives within this huge, the Bone Temple of the title. Anyone who's seen any of the artwork for this, the trailer or the poster, will know that in the center of all these huge columns of human bones is a giant tower constructed of human skulls. He lives within there, covers himself in iodine so that the rage virus, can't get to him. But living also in this woodland area is a group of zombies who we get to meet, not so much in this film, but also a group of thugs called the Jimmies, who all dress like shamed British entertainer Jimmy Savile. And the head of those is played by Jack O'Connell. Now, we all know Jack O'Connell from the evil Irishman that he played in Sinners. He's had a terrific year playing villains because he has a lot of fun with this one, and he was superb in Sinners. I'm surprised he hasn't been spoken more of for a supporting actor nod. So in this one, you have the Jimmies moving in on Dr. Kelson. All the while, you have the zombies surrounding them as well. Most specifically, you have Samson, who is this massive, often naked alpha zombie There's an awful lot of zombie pain in this film. If you saw the last film, you know where we're coming at because he has quite the endowment. Also is covered in the zombie sort of aesthetic as well. His skin is rotting and his eyes are red. But in this one, Dr. Kelson is trying to fix him and trying to change the impact of the rage virus, all the while dealing with these horrible humans, the Jimmies, and Jack O'Connell's obsession with Satan as the leader of the new world. So it's a lot of fun. Having said all that, this one delivers as a horror film, much more so than the Danny Boyle version. The symbolism and the callbacks to modern England, it's very much a Brexit parable, which is a sort of a symbolism that was introduced in the first film. In terms of the impact it has on the audience, this one very much feels like an apocalyptic zombie film. Even though the number of characters is reduced and the setting is quite reduced, this feels like a bit of a smaller film than the 28 Years Later film that was out previously. But I think that helps both understanding the characters and delivering the scares. So it's getting a lot of good reviews, and I don't think it's going to be held in as high regard as some of the critics held the last one, but I think it's a better film. So 28 Years Later's Bone Temple is in cinemas as we speak.
Yeah, I'm keen to check this one out. So I've heard lots of good things, and also I don't really like Danny Boyle much either.
Yeah, what is it with Danny Boyle? Like, I feel there's a affectation about his direction.
Yeah.
I mean, when it works in something like with Slumdog Millionaire, when it's, you can get away with being really colourful and really flamboyant and a little bit shallow, but also a little bit meaningful. That certainly worked. But God, he's made some films which just irk me to the extreme. And I always go into a Danny Boyle film with a little bit of an asterisk against it just because it's him.
Yeah, tonally, I'm not on board with him either. And I don't understand why Alex Garland hasn't directed any of these 20 Weeks Later revival films.
He does good work. I mean, everyone kind of dug Civil War,
Yeah.
which was an Alex Garland
Well,
joint.
not everyone did, but, there's
No,
some
but
taste.
kind of everyone, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think he should make films. Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe he should make he's got a real polish to him, Alex Garland, and I don't know if these films work with that kind of polish. Everyone looks really dirty and disgusting, and the settings are really horrible and bloody, and there is some real bloody stuff in 28 Years Later, Bone Temple, which I don't know if that suits the sort of more subtle aesthetic that is Alex Garland films, but he's a fine filmmaker. I don't know why he hasn't. Apparently Danny Boyle's returning for one more film after this one, which is absolutely foreshadowed at the end of this film. There's quite a surprise in the last few minutes, so we look forward to more zombie munching.
Indeed. Streaming right now on Netflix is a new film called The Rip. Let's watch the trailer.
From the outside looking in, it seems simple. Seize the cash, count it, and turn it in.
Miami PD.
On the inside, it's different.
We had a Crime Stopper tip come in on this address.
Shit. There's $1.4 million in this bucket. I bought 14 more of those things. That's a $20 million rip.
Simon Foster, let me run you through this. The simple sort of logline for this one, the plot is a group of Miami cops discover a stash of millions that leads to distrust within the team as they try to work out who amongst them might be a snitch.
Ooh, so
Yeah.
cop drama, cop thriller.
It's a crooked cop drama. And I knew this has been made on a little bit of a budget. Okay, it's Artists Equity, which is the production company from Damon and Affleck.
Mhm.
Now, they are trying to make sort of old school movies at a responsible dollar figure, which sees them paid very well. And so the movies tend to cost a fair bit of money, but that money is flowing back to both the Damon and the Affleck, but also all the people working on their films, they want to make sure are actually being paid pretty well to be working in it. Yeah. So anyway, it's a good initiative that these guys are involved in. Air was the first film to come out of Artists Equity, and there's been a couple of movies so far. This is their latest. With this one, they've teamed up with Joe Carnahan, who directed Smokin' Aces with Affleck back in 2006. Joe Carnahan does these really sort of down and dirty, gritty movie with men and guns.
With Jason Patrick. Narc was a great film.
Yeah. It's kind of they're proper gritty movies. And so I heard about that. I knew that Affleck was in it, I knew Damon was in it. A couple of other names in this one is Scott Adkins, who
Tough
is
guy,
appearing
action
in a lot of
guy.
these tough guy movies.
Yeah.
But then some people that kind of feel a bit more in like that sort of Affleck Damon world. So Kyle Chandler, who I'm pretty sure has been in a few Affleck movies at this point. I want to say that he was in The Town? Question mark.
Kyle Chandler being Super 8 and Friday Night Lights and that dude.
Yeah, I'm certain he's been in like an Affleck film. At least one,
Do you think I
if
look
not more.
like Kyle Chandler? I often get that I look like Kyle Chandler.
Tiana Taylor's in this movie. Sasha Calle, who was in the Flash movie playing Supergirl, and she's been in a few other things. She's a bit of an
Tiana
up-and-comer.
Taylor's a big deal.
Tiana Taylor's a bit of a
One bridge
deal.
after another, yeah. One battle after another.
Yeah, the bridges as well. Stephen Ewan, and who doesn't love Stephen Ewan?
Love the Ewan.
Nesta Carbonell's in all of one scene in this one. Look, there's a bunch of just like cool people that are within this. And the film, as it starts sort of kicking off, we see that Damon's like, hey, guys, part of my cop squad. So there's this squad of police officers, and they are responsible for going out and busting up drug dens and retrieving money, which they call that a rip. So it's about ripping money off from the drug dealers. So anyway, they find out about this rip, and Matt Damon's like, hey, I've just been sent this text, a bit of a tip-off about this. Come along. Apparently, it's about $150,000 that's currently there waiting to be picked up. So he gets a couple of cops along, and they're all there out of hours as well. So all of them are a bit sort of pissed off to be dragged out on a Friday afternoon to go and do this. And there's been some questions that are circling the team about one of them possibly being on the take. And then also there is their former squad leader, captain, who's just been gunned down by some, no good types. Okay, so there's lots of questions going around, and Matt Damon's just been given this promotion over the Ben Affleck character, who was also having an affair with their former captain, who's just been gunned down and murdered. So there's a lot of tensions happening within this group, and this all happens in the first couple of minutes. So Damon's like, hey, we've got to go and get this sort of money. So they turn up at this house at the end of a cul-de-sac, and then the rest of the film kind of takes place in the house for the most part. The house and the cul-de-sac. And it is tense as hell. Is gritty. There is so much violence and gunplay in this one, and it is a hell of a ride until the last 2 minutes. Like, I was literally on the edge of my seat, eating this film up. This runs for, let me find a runtime on it. It's 2 hours and a couple of minutes maybe. It's about a 2-hour movie, and for almost that entire time I was on there. The only time the movie loses me is once the movie is wrapping itself up. And it wraps up kind of, I don't want to explain the tone of it too much.
No, don't give
but
away too
certainly,
much.
after you've just been on the edge of your seat for so long, the film doesn't end with tension. Instead, it ends with a bit of a sigh of relief. I feel that was intended, because I feel as though Joe Carnahan's looking at this guy. The audience just kind of need to just be a little bit more relaxed leaving the cinema. There can't be that same sort of high tension that we've seen for the previous 150 minutes, whatever it's been. Okay. And it feels like that was there. But also at the same time, I just kind of wanted to feel like I was still living the buzz of the rest of this movie. Because it is so effing good, Simon. I am really high on the rip.
It sounds like to me, and I haven't seen this one yet, but I have seen the trailer
and also,
for it.
There's not much more you can say about it. Once you've established what the premise of it is, you just have to know it's a really tense film, as they're distrusting each other in there, as lies are being told, as truths are being revealed, and as Mexican drug lords are possibly making a play to get into the house.
We have often spoken about the value of programmer films and the kind of stuff we don't see in the movies anymore. And The Rip sounds like to me Unlawful Entry. It sounds like to me
Crooked Cops. Oh, you're sorry, it's about a movie called Unlawful Entry.
Yeah, the Kurt Russell film. There's those sort of films that used to go to cinemas where stars like Nicolas Cage or Kurt Russell would play crooked cops or bad cops or good cops facing off
Affleck and
bad
Damon
cops.
were in a bunch of these movies early in their careers.
To a certain extent, yeah.
Or Affleck particularly.
Yeah, this sounds like something that I would have rented off a video store shelf, which I've got no problem with, as everyone knows. These were the sort of films that you and I grew up on. But my main concern is this is a lot of star power, straight to, and I did go into this podcast thinking it was an Apple TV release, which would have had me more worried, but it's a Netflix one. there's a lot of big star-driven vehicles on Netflix that aren't very good. But to hear you say this, maybe I'll give it a shot.
Put it aside. This is cool as hell. You're going to love it.
All right, let's do that. It's called The Rip. It's on the Netflix. I should check it out. I mean, I like these people. These are good actors.
Like, it's a good one.
All right.
Simon Foster, what else have you been watching? Let's blitz through this. Let's rip through this.
All right, nice. I have been now I'm at, once again, much as I was with 28 Years, I'm at odds with the critical community on Hamnet. This is the story that is going to win Jessie Buckley her Best Actress Oscar, which I'm all for. I love the Buckley. She's lovely and very talented. It stars Paul Mescal as one William Shakespeare, a young William Shakespeare. They lose their son in a series of very extravagantly played emotional scenes, which felt incredibly forced and particularly fake to me. Based on that grief, he then goes off and writes Hamlet as a way of dealing with that grief and channeling that grief into his creative endeavor. We don't see any of that happen. We just have to endure the miserable farm life that Jessie Buckley has with her surviving kids. It hints at some kind of woodland mystery and that she may be a conjurer of something that doesn't really play out in any significant way. This film has a lot of big acting in it, big screaming acting moments, which to work have to have a build up and a backstory and a convincing portrayal of two hearts being broken that this film just doesn't earn. I have supported and backed Chloe Zhao, the director, in a lot of her other films, even The Eternals, which I still say is a particularly fine movie. But those that have detracted what she does, I got to agree with on Hamnet. This one just did not click for me, although it is clicking for other people, so maybe check it out. But, it's a miserable 2 hours, I got to tell you. And just very quickly, at the movie we saw the other night, Dan Barrett took me aside and chastised me for not reviewing movies that all people watch, not just a few who go to the movies. So I should be reviewing more streaming movies. So I took that to heart. And I decided to watch the number one movie on Netflix at the moment. It's People We Meet on Vacation. And perhaps Dan is right. Yes, it's taken me a few years to say that, but People We Meet on Vacation is an absolutely lovely romantic comedy that stars my new favourite actress, Emily Barter, and a British actor called Tom Blythe. As it starts off as kind of a Sure Thing rip, and you know that I'm really a huge fan of Rob Reiner's The Sure Thing. It's about how this couple who start out as friends and have a lot of fun times together work their way into a romantic relationship. It's not a big sort of twist to say that this is a very simple kind of storyline, but with these two actors out front and the key that it's played in. I've often talked about tones in film and it's tonally in balance or it's tonally out of balance. This is actually played in a key that I like, and there's certain songs that have a key to them, and I don't know what that key is because I don't know anything about music, but this is in the right key for me. I really enjoyed the color of it, the sweetness of it, the locations are lovely, the energy is just right, the two of them are great, so I'm not surprised this is number one on Netflix at the moment. And in line with what you said, Dan Barrett, maybe I will watch more streaming movies.
Maybe you should watch The Rip.
No, I'm not going to watch that.
What else have I been watching?
What have you been watching, Dan?
Great question, Simon. Great question. So look, there is a brand new Star Trek TV series. And if you're anything like me, you found most of the new Star Trek TV shows for a few years to be fairly unwatchable. Just not really a great sort of, franchise these days. It's kind of fallen into a little bit of a shithole would be the polite way to sort of phrase it.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah. The new one's called Starfleet Academy.
We're all the first Academy class to return to our campus in San Francisco after more than 120 years. Some of you are here for your families, some for yourselves. Together, you are the best and the brightest from across the galaxy. A tapestry that is Starfleet. You will learn the skills that shaped our greatest officers.
This is Star Trek doing, hey, look, we've got to get the kids on board. Let's do a YA version of Star Trek. Now, The problem with this is that, yes, it feels like it's a YA version of Star Trek. And in that, I mean that it feels like it's the same sort of sci-fi genre YA that we've seen in films like the Divergent series, The Maze Runner, all those films which I think are just kind of a bit terrible and I'm not into. Okay, so automatically, I'm not necessarily into the idea of watching a YA TV series of any
It's
sort
not
of
in our
real
wheelhouse. We're
description.
old people. We're not.
And that's
We're
fine.
not. We're not the Y that they're looking
And that's
for.
fine. But this is the thing. So, while yes, it is a YA drama, I feel that it's a YA drama that has been cynically and very calculatedly created by people that are not the audience for this. And when you're watching the first couple of episodes of this specifically, and there's 2 episodes, well, technically 3 episodes, because episodes 1 and 2 are presented as a extended episode in this one. It's technically episode part 1 and 2. But you can watch 2 to 3 episodes right now on Paramount Plus. And when you're watching them, they are so heavy with references that have happened to other Star Trek productions. So whether that is something as broad as the idea of, what do they call it? The rub? That's not the name of it.
The burn.
The burn.
Yes.
Feel the burn, Simon.
Which I didn't know was. I had to look it up because I hadn't watched any Star Trek since
Yeah.
Picard was on television.
This was a major plot point that was introduced in Star Trek Discovery, and the idea of this is that the warp drives that power all the starships and get them across the universe quick smart, none of those work anymore, and so there's a big mystery as to why that happened. But because they couldn't necessarily travel around as quickly as they were, what it means is that Starfleet, the organization that had, a couple of hundred member planets, suddenly just fell into irrelevance.
Yes.
So all these planets around the universe all said, hey, look, we don't want to be part of Starfleet anymore. So Starfleet had to go on some soul searching, shrank down dramatically, barely existed, and is kind of on the up again. And so the premise of Starfleet Academy is this is the first time that Starfleet have had an academy up and running in well over 100 years.
Yes.
And so, first of all, you need to know what the burn is in order to be able to sort of properly understand that. Also, the first 2 episodes of this are filled with so many references, whether that's the Doctor from Voyager who's cropped up in this, whether this is Tig Notari's character from Star Trek Discovery that's cropped up, whether these are small little in-jokes that are there for the fans to sort of get the little nod to and go, oh, I get what that's about, or just all the various other elements of this, which just feels every bit like, yes, it's for YA audiences, but only a YA audience member who's been alive for at least 45 years and is completely across Star Trek mythology to be able to appreciate it properly.
You've got to bring with you the core audience, which is why these references are in there. You need the oldies.
But why make a YA drama for a core audience of old people, Simon?
But you've got to find a new audience,
but you do need to find a new audience. Like, this is not. There's nothing authentic about this. It is trying to speak to 2 audiences, and as a result, speaks to neither of them effectively.
I don't disagree with that.
I've got a further thing just to embed sort of where I'm coming from. So my thinking is, if you're going to do a Starfleet Academy show, and I'm not absolutely totally okay with them doing a YA series, or even if we're not thinking about YA as a genre, but a series which is focused around the young people. And this is something they've been talking about doing in Star Trek since Next Generation days with Will Wheaton's character, whose name I forget, Crusher, whatever. There's an episode of Star Trek, which was, I think, supposed to be a spin-off for a Starfleet Academy, or at least got this conversation happening. They've been talking about doing this for years. I've got no problem with people in the early stage of their professional careers wanting to get involved in Starfleet and following that through. But there's maybe a original sin that was committed through necessity with Star Trek, because they didn't know it was going to blow into being a series of franchise shows that would continue on for the next 40 odd years. But when Star Trek Next Generation came along, the problem with Next Generation is that it's kind of just a remake of the original series. A lot of the scripts from the first season are original series scripts. They don't really stretch the boundaries in terms of filmmaking or approach to whatever. Okay, it just kind of feels like it's the modern version of the original series. And that's fine for what that is. But as the shows have gone on, there's been no efforts to try to find a new way into Star Trek that's actually really meaningfully different. It's really iterative. It's just kind of continued on, and it's been the same vibe that's been carried all the way through there. If we're at a point in Star Trek production where you've got a series which is focused on young people who are finding a brand new way into the world of Starfleet, and then two, you're doing it at what's effectively a reset point for Star Trek, where they had this thing called the burn, and so everything in Star Trek really can be completely fresh. Why don't you actually approach this as being a fresh thing with different filmmaking styles, with a different approach to storytelling? Why does this feel to me exactly like every Star Trek show in tone and vibe and the types of characters and presentation that I've been watching since The Next Generation back in 1990?
Okay. Valid points, as is often the case with you, but deeply flawed.
I didn't hear the word handsome in there, but go ahead.
Only because I think what you're suggesting is to completely jettison the legacy that Star Trek has established, and by putting that very flashy and very spectacular montage of all the Enterprise ships and the 60th anniversary logo, which comes up at the top of this, you've got to acknowledge that there is a legacy, there is a pre-burn Star Trek, and that casting the likes of Holly Hunter in a role that has called back to those moments.
So you say casting the likes of Holly Hunter. I'd say wasting the likes of Holly Hunter.
I think she brings an energy I think she bridges the gap between sort of the cool old Star Trek, the fact that they've set this in San Francisco and they end that first episode with that awful San Francisco song that harkens back to the hippie days, which I think is the Holly Hunter sort of influence as well.
But again, like the inclusion of that song feels like old people stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But you also have to weigh in that they've cast quite well the young actors in this, the Academy members, the students who are at Starfleet. If that first episode, and to a certain extent the second episode, play a little bit conventional and feel a little bit CW in the way these teenagers and Academy members talk, I think that's just growing pains. I think there's... You know what it reminded me of? And this was a show I really liked from a couple of years back, was The Ark. And I was surprised at how much I liked The Ark. And I binged The Ark because I was sort of won over by those characters. And it feels a little bit like that as well, which I don't have a problem with. I thought The Ark was a good watch. So I'm not as down on this. Now, I should point out that I haven't watched any Star Trek since The Next Generation. So I haven't been other than the movies, of course, but I haven't watched any Star Trek television in 3 decades. So to come to the first 2 episodes of this, apart from the fact that some of the design work I found a bit strange, like it looked like a food court mall, some of that Starfleet Academy.
This is what Star Trek's kind of looked like for like the last 15 years.
Yeah. But it's been given a polish. I'm going to... If it's a 4 out of 10 for you, it's a 7 out of 10 for me. I guess that's the best way to look at it.
That's like a 1 out of 10 for me, Simon.
Oh my God! See, now that's insane.
But the thing is, to retort back to what you're saying, like you're saying that, we've got to like harken to the history of all this. If you want to embrace the history of Star Trek, why are you doing a YA series? And then further to that,
why relaunch it?
Why are you doing a YA series? And why are you doing it set after the burn, which is effectively a reset point? Okay, you're saying this could be a relaunch. You relaunch it. They have not relaunched Star Trek here, Simon. They are too busy just hanging on to what they think has worked in the past. But the thing is, what's worked in the past, like,
jettisoning the legacy. You got to acknowledge that and still have that as part of the show. That means you're putting a whole lot of pressure on the writers and the actors that are bringing the young to this new Star Trek to make it work. And that's
Simon,
a big gamble to take.
I want a new TV show with new characters and something that's supposed to be a new approach and a fresh way into Star Trek to actually feel like it's a new TV show with a fresh approach in Star Trek. They have not delivered this with the program. It feels like reheated goods that tries to be gussied up with a supposed new approach in there that just is anything but.
What was the word you said before? Iterative and gussied. Someone's had this thesaurus out this week, haven't they, Dan?
What are you talking about, Simon?
I don't think iterative is even a word.
Iterative is the word.
Is it? Okay.
I promise you it's a word.
Star Trek Starfleet Academy is where can people watch this? Because they really should. It's quite good.
They can watch this on Paramount Plus.
So, now you've been watching The X-Files recently. Very quickly, let's move through your episodes because I can see this filling up the podcast for the next 6 months.
No, all I want to talk about with this week's X-Files recap is that I've now watched the entirety of season 1. I haven't watched the X-Files like sort of this closely, this much of a proper rewatch for maybe when the DVDs first came out. So this is like early 2000s, and I've certainly seen episodes here and there, but I haven't really watched the show.
Did we
like
talk about this last week?
Well, I did,
Okay.
but I've now watched the entire first season. And
Right.
what I've come to realize about the first season is that almost all the episodes that I never really cared for originally still hold, because there's a lot of really terrible episodes through this. Okay, but there are a couple of episodes which just really stand out as being just fairly incredible. And not exactly the episodes you think they are, but the episode I want to get people to go back and rewatch. If you're going to rewatch one of them, okay, go back and watch this episode for midway through season 1 called EBE. Now, it's the first sort of, it's one of those sort of conspiracy episodes.
Extraterrestrial biological entity.
That's right. And all this really is the X-Files doing what the X-Files used to do really, really well at the beginning of it, like the first couple of years, which be that Mulder and Scully get some insight into the fact there's a big conspiracy happening around, okay, by the fact that people are trying to silence them and get them off the scent as to where they're going. But instead of being, hey, look, there's a big alien conspiracy, here's like the main instigators of it, here's like a major, thing that's connected to it all, what they used to do is find their way into these conspiracies by accessing some sort of infrastructure or some sort of just real sort of side thing that no one's really thinking about. And the infrastructure here is literally there's a truck heading across the United States that has what's possibly some wreckage from a downed UFO. And they actually discover there's possibly an alien that's in this truck. And they're literally just following a truck across the country. And it's hugely thrilling.
It is.
It's the
It's a great
first one of these
episode.
conspiracy episodes where the conspiracy really comes alive. Is duplicitous conversation happening with the one person they thought they could trust, which is this guy named Deep Throat. There's some really good cinematography. The filmmaking on it's really, really good. This is the episode from season 1 to watch. Go out. If you haven't watched EBE in many years, Simon, and I suspect you haven't because...
No, that's one of my favorite episodes.
quite
So
likely.
I know
Yeah,
that sort of
it holds up, and it's so much better than you remember it being.
Duplicitous, iterative. I can't say it. It's a tough word to say. It's a lot of eyes. It's like
It's
that
where you
Scrabble game I had with my wife on holiday. I just kept picking all the eyes out. It's true. That's a true story too.
Folks, this has been Screen Watching. My name's Dan Barrett, joined by Simon Foster. Simon Foster, if people want to find you on the internet, how do they do that?
Well, they can find us through the Screen Watching channel. That's Screen Watching Podcast on Facebook, Screen Watching on the YouTube, or shoot us an email. What's your favorite X-Files episode? screenwatchingpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find my Screen Space newsletter on the Substack. I got an email through the week saying that I am a rising film and TV site, and I'm at number 61. Is that good? That's pretty good.
61 on Substack.
Yeah, in the film and TV category.
That is very good. How's that possible?
I don't know, but I got that. And then I got another one last week that said I was number 89, so I dropped back a bit, but I was doing some good numbers there for a while. I don't know what's good numbers, so yeah.
Yeah.
Where can we find you on the internet, Dan?
I don't think I'm even in the top 100.
Good Lord.
Yeah, which is bizarre because I suspect I've got more subscribers.
Yes, exactly. That's what I thought. I don't know how I got there. I had a couple of big blowout episodes, which brought in 2,000 views or something, but all the others are all kind of in the middling range. But
And I do that on a daily basis.
Well, who you know, Dan?
Apparently. Look, folks can find me also on Substack, where I'm not one of the, blessed 100. But I'm there, alwaysbewatching.com. You can get to my Substack. It runs Monday through Friday with a daily newsletter. On Friday afternoons, sometimes Saturday mornings, there's a bonus TV guide to all the movies and TV shows that are debuted on streaming that week. So check that out. Sign up. It's free, but you get a few extra things if you pay a couple of bucks for it each week. Also, Simon, people should check out my Blue Sky account, where you can find me at the Dan Barrett, or just danbarrett.bluesky, I think is the handle. And there I am posting about my X-Files episodes. So every time I watch one, I'm putting a little recap on there with a couple of thoughts on every episode.
Nice.
So people can find it there. And I think I'm going to collate them all into a very special Always Be Watching sometime in the next week or so.
A very special episode of Always Be
Very
Watching.
special issue.
And look, I have received 2 emails from people who are asking us what happened to the best movie year 1987.
I've been meaning to talk to you about that.
It has been parked. We have been quite busy lately with some other things, and we just found it was taking up quite a bit of our time, and we couldn't give all of our attention to it.
What happened was we watched through all the terrible movies from 1987, and literally 2 weeks before the US summer started, which have
we stopped
months of great movies every week.
I don't think it's any coincidence that the last movie you and I watched together before the podcast shut down was Ishtar. I think that
it does not feel like a coincidence at all.
Not at all. We're working towards a date where we can reintroduce it. We're just trying to find our schedules to do that, I think is the best way of saying it.
And I've got a lot of X-Files to watch. Folks, this has been Screen Watching. We'll be back next week with more of this and less of that. We'll see you then.